my dear lady. I do so hope it's not an inopportune time for our first practice. We don't know how to play the instruments, and so that's what we look like every time she comes downstairs. They're all handmade, and that they can actually work. It's pretty impressive. Not that we can play them. That's the good news about this. Nobody had to learn how to play an instrument.
Well, they were all made by a friend of ours named Danny Ferrington, who's a guitar maker. He made these instruments, which what did we do? We went to the museum, the Metropolitan Museum.
In New York, and also there's a collection out here of period instruments. The problem with finding instruments is people who have them don't tend to want to lend them to movie companies. So yeah, Danny Ferrington just basically made them all, some of them from the ground up.
Luthier is like a derivative of the word lute, of course, and but it's anybody who makes stringed musical instruments. My dad was a cabinet maker, and we had a shop in Louisiana where we made kitchen cabinets when I was in high school. And you know, we're from way in the country, so, you know, no running water sort of stuff, you know, was where I was raised. And there was an old man in my hometown that he knew a man in Nashville named Randy Wood, who was a wonderful craftsman and luthier. And I moved up there, you know, kind of never looked back. And I lived there in Nashville from like 75 to 80, you know, made guitars for Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, Crystal Gale, and Emmylou Harris, and went to England a couple of times and made them for George Harrison and Pete Townsend, a bunch of those kind of people. And I've been doing it for like 28 years now, so it's fun. You can't honor a piece of wood more than to make a musical instrument, as far as I'm concerned, you know. I'll see beautiful furniture at some show or something, and I'll just look at the table and I go, oh man, it's a nice table, but boy, it'd have been much better on a guitar. It starts out like the way I make guitar. It starts, I have a chunk of wood. You know, this is a nice piece of mahogany, big chunk of mahogany, and I will, more than not, you cut it into thin pieces for the sides, and you soak this in water. And then I have an iron that has an element in it that's hot. And as you press on it, the wood fibers relax, and you can bend it in any shape you like. You know, here's just like some sides that I bent for a guitar. And then this side's for a mandolin that I made. And this is a mandolin I'm making for Tom Hanks here. He would like to have a really nice mandolin. So I'm almost finished with this one. And you glue all those parts in. And then, you know, you have like the wood for the tops. This is nice spruce. And you join the spruce together. And then there's a series of braces, which is sort of the guitar maker's art. You glue braces in certain places to make it strong, because there's 250 pounds of tension on an acoustic guitar. So the art of it is making it so it's strong enough to hold that tension, but also making it weak enough so that it can move air. You know, you don't move air, you don't get sound. And so that's what it's all about, is moving air, and moving it in a real pleasant way, you know, and making it musical. The thing about musical instruments, it should be on the verge of falling apart. That's where the line is. If it's on the edge of falling apart, you've probably made a pretty good instrument. I met Ethan Joel on like a party thing, and we got to be buddies, and Ethan plays guitar. And so me and Ethan play, you know, in between lighting setups, and, you know, we'll be sitting there playing, you know, Mississippi John Hurt, and they go, Ethan, they're ready to a take now. We turned out to be really good friends to each other, you know, and all we do is laugh. I mean, all we do is just laugh about things. And I like hanging out on set. You know, lunch is good, it's friendly, nobody's yelling at each other. It's a really nice set. Well, first, this is the Tom's fiddle, and I got an old case. I got it at the Rose Bowl flea market. And the fiddle was pretty plain. It just looked old. It was really cheap. And then I put the pearl around it to make it look more like a Renaissance, you know, the period. Because he quotes Edgar Allan Poe a lot, we put I cut the headstock off and put a raven on the headstock. Ethan goes, just make sure it doesn't end up looking like a chicken. And then this is the sack butt. I looked in like all these early music books and to see, and it's a precursor of the modern day trombone. The early days, what they would do is the thing would go, the slide would go so far out, they actually had to use a puller to hold it. So it goes beyond the reach of your arm, which is insane, you know? Ethan had saw these, these early French horns that were shaped like a donut. So anyway, this is just the natural French horn case that, like, Ethan wanted to be like a donut, and I just took a French horn case and added on to it, and got the handle on it here and everything, make it like a donut. It's so silly. This is the Orbo, and it's basically like a lute. We made it just as stupid as we could make it. Then it has these sympathetic strings that fly out here in the outside, and I made them with, I put little elephants and their little trunks hold them up. And I made the case, and this is the case they end up putting the money in, This is my favorite instrument out of all of them. I love this one. It's called a harpalier. It has these 3 guitar necks, and it was made in the 1700s, and apparently historically they don't even know why he made them. There's no music for it, or they don't know how he tuned it. God only knows what this guy was doing with these things back then. It was the most fun to make, most challenging to make, because I made it totally from scratch, which was kind of hard. And then I saw in some of these instruments, and that they had taken some pictures for me of some of the instruments, and then they would always have like a little piece of parchment of the maker, So I put like a picture of myself in it and composed a piece of parchment. You don't ever really see it, but it's a detail, a hidden detail. It's really fun. A lot of people make really good instruments, but they're not musical instruments. They're like, the woodworking will be really fine and really, detailed, but it won't be like a musical instrument that you can play, you know what I mean? I mean, you can get lost too much in the woodworking, and I do good woodworking, but I'm not so anal about, all the bindings and get lost in the whole thing. I know at the end of the day, what I need to make is a musical instrument, and something that a musician will want to play, and thereby inspiring him to write music or do something important. And a lot of the musicians that I know and I made guitars for, George Harrison and Ry Cooder and stuff, they don't look at the criteria of a musical instrument because of how shiny it is or what the name is on the headstock. It's something they have a complete emotional and a relationship with that instrument, you know what I mean? It is a very, very potent thing for them. The thing that I really try to do is to make it as much like that person as I can. And I feel like I can do the best job if I get to know you more. And then when they get that guitar and they hold it, there's something in that guitar that's them. I remember when Kurt Cobain had came here and I made him this guitar, and the poor kid had like cheap guitars and not really good ones. And here I had made him a custom guitar just the way he wanted it. And I remember he sat over in that chair. He was like, playing Teen Spirit on it, really kind of quietly playing Teen Spirit, And I said, do you like it, Kurt? And he had his head down. He was very respectful. He was very respectful, really good kid. And he looked up at me, he says, this is like my dream guitar. And I went, oh. He was afraid to play it on stage because he didn't want to lose himself. But I don't really care. I love it when, I remember there was a guitar I had with Johnny Cash I'd made, and the back, Johnny had like a belt buckle that had like, it was solid gold with eagle wings. An insane belt buckle. And it looked like he'd taken a garden tool and it hacked up the back of it. And people said, oh, doesn't that break your heart? And I go, no, Johnny Cash did that. It's his guitar. It proves that he loves it. You know what I mean? If people didn't play them, it's an insult to me. I procrastinate a lot. I mean, I'm famous for doing this. It's terrible, unless I have like a real fixed deadline. I don't live a regimented lifestyle, which is good and terrible. I usually just take a nap in my swing here. It's usually what I end up doing, to tell you the truth. I come down here and that's all I accomplish. Okay. I mean, I probably made 450 instruments, something like that. And it's funny, when I had a book that came out, and it came out in 1991. And so we collected all these instruments, and it was interesting to come back and visit them, because it's like they're my kids, and they've been off earning a living, they've been off working. So whenever I'm making something here in the shop, I never know what's going to happen to it when it goes out there and what it's going to do to somebody. And so it's really a wonderful craft, and I'm honored to be able to do it. To me, it's fascinating. I mean, I'm 51 years old, and I'm whittling. You know what I mean? I'm basically whittling with chisels and a knife. And I love what I do. I mean, it's just, I couldn't have picked a better life for myself, you know? I mean, really, I mean, I'm so unbelievably happy most all the time. I'm the happiest person most any of my friends know about. And also, you know, there's a thing about it, if I get melancholy, I'll find that by just cutting the wood or something, there's all this past happiness about work, and that just comes right out. It happens again. You know, I go right back to being happy again.